Well, good morning. And first of all, I hope that you're all doing well at home in this challenging times. And I would like to welcome to our first Women in Philanthropy Zoom webinar entitled Ways to Find Happiness in Challenging Times. This will be an informative presentation by an accomplished UCLA expert on how we can bring more happiness into our lives right now. My name is Anna Marie Spaderoux, and I am the current president of Women in Philanthropy. As you all know, or should know by now, if you are one of our members, Women in Philanthropy at UCLA celebrates and inspires women giving across the UCLA campus and fosters women's participation on campus boards and volunteer leadership positions. Our group celebrated our 25th anniversary in 2019. We now have 2,800 members who contribute time, talent, and treasure to every corner of the university. These extraordinary women leaders have roles on many of the advisory leadership groups here at UCLA and also hold positions within the UCLA Foundation. To engage the UCLA community, we hold events throughout the year that showcase different areas on campus, across the campus. This webinar is the first one that the Women's Philanthropy Program has ever held. It's a great opportunity to reach out to members and other supporters of UCLA during this unusual time to bring some intellectual and emotional nourishment to you all while you're at home. This morning's presentation should be very enlightening and informative. And I will now introduce our speaker, Cassie Mogilner Holmes. With mounting uncertainty and concern for family, friends, and the community, it is natural to feel anxious and perhaps scared. Amid these negative emotions, however, sustaining positive feelings is essential. It increases motivation, creativity, adaptive problem solving, immune functioning, and kindness. All things we need more than ever as we are restricted at home with family members, roommates, or alone. Our presenter, Cassie Mogilner Holmes, is an associate professor of marketing and behavioral decision-making at the UCLA Anderson School of Management and the Donalisa 86 and Bill Barnum Endowed Term Chair in Management. She studies happiness, highlighting the role of time. Her research examines such questions as how focusing on time rather than money increases happiness, how the meaning of happiness changes over the course of one's lifetime, and how much happiness people enjoy from extraordinary and ordinary experiences. Across these inquiries, our findings highlight the high level of happiness that stems from personally connecting with people and with the present moment, which explains why complying with the stay-at-home orders can be so challenging for so many of us. Prior to joining UCLA Anderson, Cassie was a tenured faculty member at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, where she was an award-winning teacher of strategic brand management. She earned a PhD in marketing from Stanford and her BA from Columbia as a psychology major. Professor Mogilner Holmes will share best practices to sustain positivity during these difficult times. She will answer questions at the end of her presentation, so please submit them through the Q&A function on your Zoom screen. They will be reviewed and consolidated by staff, and I will present them to her for her response. Cassie, your turn.
Wonderful. Good morning. Thank you. I hope we're all set. And hopefully you can see my screen right now. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, and I am so happy to be here to talk to you guys about how to stay positive in these unhappy times. Let's see on the screen. Okay. We want to be happy. The American Constitution declares it an inalienable right, and people across the globe consistently rate it among their most important pursuits. And this isn't new. Back in the 17th century, French philosopher Pascal observed All men, and presumably he also meant women, seek happiness. This is without exception. Whatever different means they employ, they all tend to this end. We want to feel happy. But wanting to feel happy might not seem right these days. We are living in stressful, scary, and sad times. We feel constant fear that we or our loved ones will get sick, and we feel heartbreaking sadness hearing from those who have lost loved ones who got too sick. We're scared for the economic state of the world, for our local communities, and for our own financial well-being, as salaries and jobs are evaporating. We're sad for our friends and the millions and millions of people whose jobs have already been lost. And we're stressed, trying to figure out how to exist quarantined in our homes without knowing for how long and without being able to go out and do all the things we view as fun. And we're sad crossing off so many of those fun things that have been waiting for us on our calendars. With all of this badness, striving for happiness might seem a little indulgent, but it's not. Yes, you're necessarily going to feel some very negative emotions at points, but the extent to which you can shift towards a more general state of positivity is going to be what gets you through this. Now, this is important, not just for yourself, but also for the people around you, your family members and friends, your teams in an organization, and for our community and society. Because research has shown that being happy and feeling happy has positive consequences across our domains of life, in the workplace, in our interpersonal relationships, even with respect to health. So thinking about the workplace, or actually more generally, feeling happy keeps us motivated, feeling confident, competent, and able. Happiness also increases our creativity and adaptive problem solving, which we need in spades these days as we figure through this new remote working environment. And as we figure out how to be productive, how to work effectively with our colleagues, or how to give presentations on Zoom. Now, with respect to interpersonal relationships and interactions, we also see the benefits of happiness. So experiments have shown that when we are made to feel happy, we like other people more and we are liked by other people more. Plus, feeling happy makes us nicer. It makes us more likely to say and do kind things for others, and it makes us more likely to help out. There's also some evidence that happiness helps our health, boosting our immune functioning and helping us respond better to physiological stressors. All of this points to happiness as crucial to making us resilient. It is not indulgent. It is needed, especially during these unhappy times. And I want to say it again, prioritizing your emotional well-being won't only help you, it will also help you help your family, your friends, your organization, your community to move forward and to remain standing on the other side of this crisis. If you're a manager, you should also care about the happiness of those on your team, because happy employees are more engaged, more productive, more willing to go above and beyond for their colleagues and for the organization. And happy employees are less likely to burn out and leave. Now, what determines our happiness? Well, a big chunk of it is based off of our natural disposition, our set point. So were you born or are you naturally a positive person, tending to see the glass as half full? Now, the reason our natural disposition has such a big impact is because it influences how we perceive, respond to, and adapt to the stuff that life throws at us. Then there are our circumstances, and the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So this includes things like income level, attractiveness level, marital status, parental status, etc. Now, these are the things that people actually think have the biggest influence on our happiness. when I present about happiness and talk about it, people always ask about the role of money because they think that that has the biggest effect. But if you actually look at the effect of each of these things over time, they have less of an effect than you might think. And that's because we adapt to these circumstances, and how we react to them is actually what influences how we feel in our day-to-day life, as well as how we feel about our life overall. So our natural disposition, one of the reasons it has such a big influence is because it influences how we adapt and react to these circumstances. But we can also do things to influence how we adapt and react. And it's this piece that I'm most interested in, you should be too, because this is the piece we have control over. A significant chunk of our happiness is determined by what we think about and focus on, what we do, and how we behave in our day-to-day. Now, notably, many of these ways of thinking and behaving that research has identified as positively contributing to happiness, these are ways that mimic the tendencies of naturally happier people. But it's important to identify these ways so that A, those who naturally have a more negative disposition can actually practice and train themselves towards a more positive experience in life. And B, even those of us who are naturally happy are sometimes presented with pretty lousy circumstances. And it's useful to go to and pull from these empirically tested and proven tools to get us back on track. Now, indeed, for all of us, and even more so for some, this COVID crisis has put us in a pretty darn lousy set of circumstances. It is testing the positivity of even the most positive among us. And I am a perfect example of this. I am known for my happiness. But a couple Saturdays ago, sitting at the breakfast table with my husband, 2 kids eating pancakes, I broke down into tears. I was just overwhelmed and overcome by all of what's going on. And that's okay. After giving myself a bit of space to feel and notice this sadness, I then went to the tools that research has shown can influence our happiness, the very same tools that I teach my students. And I'll share these with you. Now, all of them are based on research, but I'm going to make this personal, sharing how they helped me and my experience over the last 6 weeks. So you were here with me in my home in the corner of our guest room with my safer at home hippie hair. Usually when I give presentations out in the world, it's like lovely and blown out and I look far more polished than I do right now. But I'm making it personal because it is personal. It's not about societal sentiment or about how you should be feeling. This is about you and your personal well-being. It's about how you feel and things that you can do to make yourself feel a little better. And I will say, not all of these things are going to resonate equally for everyone. So just listen, try them out even, and use the ones that work for you personally. So the first way to be more positive in these unhappy times is very simple, and it's simply to breathe. Now, we are all feeling high levels of anxiety. Now, and anxiety is a future-focused negative emotion that gets exacerbated by not knowing what is going to happen and a lacking sense of control. Not only these days do we not know what is going to happen, when, how long we're going to be in this, and when and how we're going to emerge from this, but we're also fearful of what the future has in store for us. Deep breathing is a simple yet effective way we can manage our anxiety. Taking long, deep breaths helps us recenter and settle back into ourselves and into the present moment. So when you feel yourself spiraling, just pause and take a few deep, long breaths. You can also set cues or reminders for yourself at points throughout the day to remind yourself to take a minute, close your eyes, and take several long and deep breaths. And you could do this right when you wake up, or when you're waiting for the water to boil, or your tea or your coffee to brew. Or you could do it, every morning when you go outside to pick up the newspaper, which gets delivered. And as I am saying that, I realize that we might be the only household that still gets a paper delivered, and that is because my husband likes reading the physical paper. But whatever cue you use, it is to remind yourself to, again, pause and breathe deeply. Now, deep breathing is also part of meditation practices. And meditation is the practice of turning your attention away from those distracting thoughts, where we're trying to predict what's going to happen and when, and of course we can't predict anything. But what meditation does is it leads us to focus our attention on a single reference point, on your breath, for instance, on the present moment. And this helps quiet your racing mind. And research has shown that meditation has a host of cognitive and emotional benefits. And by keeping us from ruminating on all that scary stuff that's out of our control, it effectively reduces our feelings of anxiety, depression levels. It lifts our mood and our overall satisfaction in life. If you need some guidance in meditating, there are a bunch of options available. This is not an exhaustive list, but here are some. So in addition to apps like Headspace and Calm, UCLA's Mindful Awareness Research Center offers free guided meditations in both English and Spanish. And it's a fantastic center. And I encourage you to go to the website. You can not only learn about the research that they're conducting to show the benefits of meditation, but there's also helpful videos to sort of talk about how to set yourself up for meditation, as well as it has these guided meditations that you could follow. Here's actually one simple meditation that I've been doing sitting outside with my kids. So for this meditation, you go through each of your 5 senses, identifying first 5 things that you see in your environment, then 4 things that you feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Not only is doing this calming, but it's actually really, we found it to be lovely because it's leading us to notice all of the loveliness of the sort of quiet LA that we're now living in. We've seen and heard hummingbirds in our neighborhood, which we didn't see or notice quite as much before. And actually really the sound of all the birds, it sounds like a rainforest in our backyard, which is sort of nuts because we live right in the center of West LA. But it's been leading us, you feel that breeze and you sort of smell that dry air. And it leads us to smell all the flowers, see the flowers in our neighborhood. The roses are in full bloom and it's unbelievable. It's so beautiful. And we've been noticing these not only through our meditation, but also on our walks during the day. These are some flowers that I saw on our walk yesterday. So for this meditation, again, it's simple. You can do it alone. And I encourage you to do it outside because then you have all of those sensations and it's quite calming. And then, as I mentioned, you can also do it with others. So we do it with the kids for each of the senses. My son will say all the 5 things he sees, my daughter the 5 things she sees, etc. And it's calming, it brings us into the here and now. If meditation isn't your thing, because you're kind of like me and you struggle sitting for more than 3 minutes at a time, you might consider trying yoga. So yoga involves movement along with breath. And there are tons of online yoga sessions that you can follow. Zoom has been declared 2020's hottest yoga studio. But regardless of whether it's meditation, yoga, or the little reminders that you set for yourself, my point here is you have to remember to breathe. Second piece of advice is to spend time offline. So this is another way to manage your anxiety. Limit your news intake. Yes, you do need to know the trusted sources so you can go to them in order to stay informed, but limit your exposure to news and social media. The constant barrage of scary news and recirculating fear that you pick up through social media can be debilitating. Third, get moving. So research shows that just 30 minutes each day of exercise can boost your mood and decrease your stress levels. Exercise can also make you feel physically capable, which translates into an overall sense of self-efficacy. Now, this is particularly important right now when everything feels a bit out of our control. So get moving at least once a day. It doesn't have to be intense, and it can take a lot of different forms. I like pairing it with the opportunity to get outside by going for a run or for a walk. But you can make it more social and do it from the comfort of your living room by joining a virtual exercise class. Or you can invest in a trampoline like we did. Not only does it get the kids' energy out throughout the day and the short breaks from homeschooling, but my husband and I found that it's kind of impossible to not start smiling when you're jumping in the air. Or you can turn on the music and recruit your family or roommates, or just go solo and have a dance party in your kitchen. Or even better, in terms of increasing your self-efficacy, you can turn the music way up and have a cleaning dance party. However you want to do it, you need to get out of your desk chair and get moving at least once a day. Now, fourth, with so much out of our control, we need to assert it where we can. Establishing structure in the day helps us retain a sense of control over our lives. Now, to do this, things to keep in mind: treat your workdays like workdays and weekends like weekends. Since our work and our personal life is now conducted in the same space, it's important to protect each from the other. We want to complete our days feeling a sense of accomplishment, and this requires protecting the time and space to get done what you need to do. So during the work week, have an established morning routine that includes getting out of bed, making the bed, showering, getting dressed. And given the benefits of exercise that I just shared, you might consider incorporating exercise into your morning routine as well. And hopefully by now you've set up a place in your house where you can work without too much distraction. And sitting there signals both to yourself as well as others around you that you are at work. I have taken over the corner of our guest room as my home office. And as you can see here, and in that last day, actually before the shutdown, when we knew that we were for sure not going to be able to go back into our offices, I went to my office at Anderson at UCLA, and I wheeled my office chair, which I'm now sitting in, out of my office, along with taking my computer, even my desk lamp, and I will return them to my office when I'm allowed to return to my office. And I had this picnic folding table in our garage, set it up with a tablecloth, put my little plants to create this space for me to work. And it's my space during the day to get stuff done. And I am fortunate enough to have a door that I can close. But you can also see that I am dangerously close to the refrigerator. My husband's right upstairs next to our daughter's dolls, and along with his COVID purchase for himself, which is his standing desk. And having an established workspace and routine is also important for the kids. My son's school is actually requiring them to wear their school uniform shirt to serve as a cue for them that it is time to focus. It is school time. And I ask that you please ignore the huge hole in the knee of his pants. But I will say that one of the benefits of all this is that he can wear those pants for school, and there's no way we would have been able to get away with that otherwise. There are actually a number of benefits to our current existing of working from home that we can and should leverage. A big one is our lack of commute. Now, time tracking studies, research that basically tracks how Americans spend their days, as well as how they feel over the course of their days. And from this data, you can identify what are those activities that tend to be associated with the most positive emotion, and what are those activities that tend to be associated with the most negative emotion. And what you see here is that commuting is the singular most negative activity. And during this crisis, none of us have to commute. So we have eliminated our worst daily activity. And we've regained those minutes that we would spend commuting that we can spend otherwise. Working from home can also give us a bit more flexibility. So for instance, if you find that you're clearer in your thinking and more efficient in your work early morning, when you aren't expected to be on Zoom meetings and your kids aren't up yet, you have the option to roll out of bed, get a couple of really good hours of work done and in before everyone else gets up and everyone else gets online. This is actually something that a tactic that my husband has been using and has found it very useful. Or like me, in terms of flexibility, on Thursdays, I start the workday, and instead of doing the whole showering and exercise before I start the workday, I actually take a break mid-morning and go for a run. It's a nice break to get some fresh air. And I would say in normal life, my kids are not at school in the next room, but now they are. So we can have lunch together, and we've been having these picnics, picnic lunches in the backyard. But whatever structure you use, the important thing is that you feel in control and are deciding how you spend your time. Don't let your schedule happen to you. Rather than being reactive, be proactive with your time usage. Just because meetings these days don't require you to travel, Zoom meetings can absorb entire work days, and apparently I have found entire work weeks. So protect your work time for doing the work that's necessary to reach your desired and required output. This will help ensure that you finish out the day feeling that sense of accomplishment. And just as critically, shut off at the end of the day to relax and do things you enjoy. Have a cocktail, go for a walk around the neighborhood, set the table and sit for a leisurely dinner, watch a movie, play games. My casual pulling of friends and families during this crisis has shown that folks have been doing much more of these things, particularly the alcohol consumption, during the last 6 weeks. And it's nice because before this forced pause, movie and game nights never found their way into our hyper-scheduled and rushed work weeks. Also important is to shut off at the end of the week. Now, with my Anderson colleagues, Colin West and Sanford DeVoe, we show the importance of treating our time off for what it is, time off. In life before the crisis, our weekends had become so routine, filled with chores, social obligations, catching up on work. We didn't really notice the weekend as a true break, which is notably what a vacation is, a true break. Plus, our analysis of data covering tens of thousands of Americans showed that making time for vacation is significantly positively related to happiness and satisfaction in life. So what we did is we ran a couple of experiments testing what would happen if people just treated their weekends like a vacation. So in these experiments, we conducted them among fully employed Americans who got weekends off from work over the course of a regular weekend. And on the Friday leading into the weekend, we gave them a simple set of instructions. Half of the participants, we gave them this set of instructions. Treat this weekend like a vacation. That is, to the extent possible, think in ways and behave in ways as though you were on vacation. The color was not in their instructions, that's for you guys. The other participants were randomly assigned to our control condition, and these instructions that we instructed them, treat this weekend like a regular weekend. That is, to the extent possible, think in ways and behave in ways you normally would on a weekend. On Monday, following the weekend, we reconnected with them and measured their happiness. And what we found was that this simple set of instructions about how to treat the weekend on Friday carried over and had a statistically significant effect on people's subsequent happiness when they were back at work on Monday. And this is controlling for their baseline level of happiness. That is, and also not only did this set of instructions make them happier on Monday when they returned to work, but we also saw that it made them enjoy the weekend more. So some of the, you might be asking, well, why? This is interesting and intriguing, but why is it happening? So we looked into this, and we asked people to tell us how, sort of reconstruct their weekend and tell us what they did over the course of the weekend. And what we found was that people in the vacation condition did shift their behavior a little bit. So they ate a little bit more. They stayed in bed a little bit longer cuddling. And they did work a little less. And they also did a little less housework. So this is interesting. But I think what's even more interesting is that this shift in behavior is actually not what influenced their happiness on Monday. What did influence their happiness on Monday seemed to be their mindset during the weekend. That is, those who treated their weekend like a vacation were more engaged in their activities. They were more focused on the present moment and what they were doing and whom they were with over the course of the weekend. So it wasn't the activity itself, it was how engaged they felt. That because this vacation, this like, oh, this is a true break, what it seemed to lead people to do was sort of settle in and settle down into what they were doing. And it's this sort of shift in mindset, this greater attention to the present moment that made them enjoy their weekend more. And it's this that translated into greater happiness on Monday. So even though these days we cannot get on a plane to go on vacation, and actually we really can't go anywhere for that matter, what these findings show is that our mindset influences our happiness, how we experience our time. And we can benefit from framing our weekends for what they are, a much needed break, like a vacation. So on Friday evening, when the weekend is starting, mark it. You might do it with a Manhattan in a fancy glass. And indeed, last Friday, I was actually, I had a Zoom lunch with my sort of favorite colleagues, other fellow marketing faculty in the area. And this sparked a text stream where over the course of the Friday afternoon into the evening, we texted each other our sort of pictures of that cocktail or drink that was marking the end of the week and the beginning of the weekend. So this actually leads, this connection with colleagues leads to my next piece of advice, which is perhaps the most important. Even though we can't be in the same physical place, we have to stay connected with our loved ones, our family, our friends, perhaps colleagues. Isolation can quickly turn into loneliness which is a direct route to depression. Classic theories in psychology identifying our fundamental psychological needs clearly point to the feeling of being connected and having a sense of belonging as critical. So both in this theory, self-determination theory, as well as we see it in Maslow's hierarchy of need, where just beyond these sort of physiological needs, you know, food, shelter, yes, we need those, but right there, our most basic psychological need is connectedness, a sense of belonging. Having close social bonds through family and friends is essential to our health and our happiness. And research has consistently shown that spending time socializing is the happiest part of our days. And those who feel authentic connection with others are more satisfied in life and less prone to depression. As this quote about friendship by Sir Francis Bacon points out, not only does friendship improve happiness, which of course we want, but social support helps manage through the bad stuff too. And that is something we really need these days. But this connection might look a little different, right? And it does. And it's hard because many of the social experiences that pop into our minds as particularly happy aren't available to us right now. So for instance, going out for lunch, going out for dinner, going out for a drink, going to the beach, going to a concert or a sporting event or on vacation. And it is these experiences that hundreds of participants in my research reported as the extraordinary happy experiences in their lives. It is the life milestones, getting married, graduation, having a baby. It is those vacations that people report as their extraordinary happy experiences. It is cultural events, concerts, sporting events. And I will say that it is these types of experiences that I was so looking forward to in March after wrapping up my teaching quarter. So I ended teaching my happiness class on March 10th. And when I'm teaching, I'm like fully absorbed. And over the course of the quarter, I had learned that I got, my promotion went through for full professor, which is exciting. And so my husband and I set up like our fun celebratory date night for that Friday after teaching. My dialogue said it's going to be sort of a fun, yummy tasting menu evening. And that got canceled. Also, this year I turned 40, and every year my girlfriends from college, who all live around the globe at this point, one in France, one in New York, one Houston, we have a trip, a sort of long weekend where we meet up, leave the husbands and kids behind, and they're just together to eat, have conversation. And so since we all turned 40 this year, we had a sort of extra special girls weekend planned where we were going to go to San Sebastian and eat amazing, amazing food. That got canceled. And every year it's become a little bit of a tradition. My husband and the kids, we go to Mexico, and just for some days of relaxing, being together. And it's just one of my favorite sort of few days of the year. And that got canceled. And it was so sad when each of these experiences got canceled and I had to cross them off my calendar. And I'm sure that all of you guys can relate to that, whether it's vacation, celebration of life milestones, crossing them off. And we're left wondering, where do we find our happiness? The good news is that there are a lot of happy experiences that are still available to us. There is a lot of potential happiness from the ordinary experiences that show up in our everyday life. So in our research, we also asked participants to recall a recent ordinary experience that made them happy. And these were the types of experiences that they shared. So these are shared simple moments with friends, family, pets came up a lot. Treats, so enjoying a cold frappuccino on a hot day, an In-N-Out burger, lovely glass of wine, and also noticing nature. So noticing a view, sort of smelling the roses, the air. And again, I want to point out that these are experiences that we still have access to during these days of social distancing. And the question that we had been exploring in our research, this research was conducted pre-crisis. This was back in 2014 and 13. Our research question was, which types of these experiences make us most happy? Is it the extraordinary or is it the ordinary? And so what we did was, in addition to asking people to recall experience from their life that made them happy, we measured just how happy that experience made them. And what we found was that the extent to which these experiences contributed to happiness depended on the person's age. And so we found this pattern of results that we have since replicated in lots of different ways, which is this, that among younger people, it's the extraordinary experiences that lead to greater happiness than the ordinary experiences. Interestingly, among older people, those ordinary experiences produced as much happiness as the extraordinary experiences. And I think that an interesting sort of contrast that gets picked up here is that as people get older, they are more likely to notice and to savor these simple, ordinary moments. Now, what's interesting and important here is that when we dug into this pattern of results, we found that it actually wasn't about age per se, or how old people were. It was really about how much time people felt like they had left in their life. So younger people tend to view their futures as more expansive. As you get older, it tends to be that older people view their futures as more limited. But of course, there are some young people who are very aware that, you know, time is finite, and actually view their time as quite limited. And then there are older people who are like, hey, they live forever. They view their futures as very expansive. So there are individual differences. But also, there are circumstantial factors that can influence how much time we feel like we have left. For instance, when a crisis like this one highlights to all of us, whether we're old or young, our mortality and the mortality of those we love, it makes us realize that our time is in fact limited. And what this does is it makes us view our time as more precious, thus leading us to savor and notice those ordinary experiences more and gain greater happiness from them. So we conducted a study that captures this, where we, instead of looking at just age, although it's related to age, we measured how much time people perceive themselves as having left in life. And then what we did was we used a different approach. Instead of having people recall an experience that was happy, we looked at those experiences that people are posting on Facebook, because presumably they're posting things that make them happy. These are experiences they want to memorialize. And indeed, what you see is what people post on Facebook are the types of experiences that were generated in our previous study. So you see, for example, using my husband's Facebook page as an example, that people are often posting these extraordinary experiences, like the life milestone. So clearly my husband's most important life milestone is marrying me. And you see those other life milestones like vacations or concerts. You also see people posting those ordinary experiences that contribute to happiness. So like those simple moments shared with friends, family, pets, enjoying treats, noticing nature. And what we did in this study was we asked people to share with us the last Facebook post that they had, the experience that they most recently posted. And what we found was that those who had reported that their futures were more expansive, they were more likely to have posted an extraordinary experience. Whereas those who viewed their futures as more limited were more likely to have posted an ordinary experience. And so again, it's not about age per se, it's about how much time we sort of, how finite or limited we perceive our futures as being, that influences the extent to which we pull out, notice those ordinary experiences that are already there and still available to us even these days in our life. And if you recall from the earlier study that I showed with you, those ordinary experiences produced as much happiness as the extraordinary among our older participants. And now all of us are in the sort of psychological mind space of older, wiser people, where realizing that our time is indeed precious. And there is a lot of happiness available to us in the day-to-day in these days. And these happy moments, along with those extraordinary moments, sum up to our lives and who we are, as this quote points out. And these simple moments show up in our homes and connect us to the people we love, even if it's remotely. So when you pause to take those deep breaths, perhaps through meditation or going for a walk, noticing that nature, it will make you feel more positive. And even if you can't go out to celebrate life milestones and fancy restaurants, you can set the dining room table, with the crystal glasses next to your son's puzzle that he's currently working on. And you can have a special dinner and you can create a celebration in your home. And we ordered a delicious pickup or takeout French meal. And even though my girlfriends and I weren't able to meet up in San Sebastian to celebrate us turning 40, we have been able to get together. And actually, we've been doing it more often than we ever did before. So every Saturday, we have our Zoom hangout with a glass of wine. And we have those conversations, those sort of soul-filling conversations. That is what the weekend in San Sebastian would have provided, but we get it still. And even though we weren't able to go to Cabo for a spring break, we did have a great vacation over the weekend. The kids made a fort that they slept in. We spent hours playing. Monopoly is now the new game that we introduced them and have sort of reintroduced to ourselves. Rob made donuts from scratch. We had wine starting at noon with lunch, just like we would on vacation. And so we treated the weekend like a vacation, and it was a break, and it was fun, and we enjoyed it, and that happiness carried over into our happiness on Monday. And we've also pushed ourselves to make what might be ordinary a little bit more extraordinary. So we often have a sort of movie night, and we turned one of our movie nights into a full-on event. So the new Trolls movie, they released it right to video or streaming. And we made a big deal about it because we had been planning to go to the theaters, which we of course can't. So we ordered Trolls wigs, we ordered movie theater candy, and Rob set up the big screen in our living room, and it was extraordinary. It was a fun event. So while there is a lot of bad, there is also still a lot of good, and we just need to notice it. And this attention towards positivity will prove to be a key tool to get us through this. So with that, I thank you guys for listening. Again, I encourage you to try on any or all of these to see how they can make you feel a little better during these not so happy times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Casey, for such a positive presentation. We have received a lot of questions, which unfortunately we will not have time to answer during the webinar, but would you be willing to answer some of those questions in writing if we submit it to you after the fact?
Sure. Yeah.
Good. So I had one which was interesting. I think it applies to a lot of us in a lot of situations. I mean, some of us are by ourselves at home.
Yeah.
Some of us, on the other hand, are spending a lot more time than usual in confined spaces with either our children or our significant others. And part of the question is, how do you remain positive in those type of circumstances? So can you provide some example of positive, intentional thinking that we can do?
Yeah, so to the first part of your question of those who are living alone. And so there, and I talked about the importance of social connection for our well-being. And what I would say is it's almost even more important for you if you're living, if you're quarantining alone, is to reach out and establish that connection. Use, like technology, sort of pre-crisis, I would often sort of frame technology as a sort of enemy of happiness because it's distracting, pulls us out of the moment. But thank gosh for this technology that we have to allow us to not only talk to our loved ones or friends, but also see. And so you can establish a great sense of connection. And there are lots of events that are being put on. So making sure you connect and spend that time, Zoom time or Skype time or whatever it is, FaceTime, with the people that you love. Have those, like for instance, with my family over Easter, my mom was, we had both the Zoom where we were all sitting down and my brother in New York. We had our mimosas together, but also in the morning when we had the kids Easter egg hunt in the backyard, my mom was FaceTimed in, so she was sort of with me on my phone, talking to the kids, engaging. And so even though she wasn't with us physically, she was definitely with us in that experience. So with loved ones, but also even there are a lot of social events that are available to folks. You can play bridge online, you can play chess online, and more and more sort of wine tastings have been going online. So it's a way to have an experience virtually with others and sort of sharing in that sense of connection. And remembering that we're all in this together. So I very strongly promote or suggest for those who are living at home or alone or quarantining alone to reach out and have that social connection, at least some every day. For those who are quarantined and squished into the safe space, and you're like, even though we love these people so much, that's a lot of time and a lot more time than we're used to. And so being cognizant of that, aware of that, creating time where you just need your break and space and communicating it, and maybe even setting it up. I talked about the value of structuring your time. Maybe put that into your schedule, have it agreed upon, with your partner, with the kids. It's like, okay, this is sort of my time, or everyone can have their own time. For me, that's actually once a week I do yoga in the morning by myself, outside, away from everyone. Others are not invited. I have also actually, when I have felt myself getting a little too stir crazy and feeling annoyed by those around me, going outside and going for a walk. So yes, it's being aware of the importance of social connection, as well as also the importance of self-care.
All right, thank you. I think unfortunately we are going to have to terminate this webinar. Thank you so much again for your great times and great recommendations. And thank you for Women in Philanthropy members and other UCLA supporters that participated in the seminar. We will be sending a survey about the webinar and hope that you will share your feedback with us. And then Cassie, thank you for accepting to respond to the other questions that we received. We received quite a few good ones. So you had a lot of interest in this webinar. Now, depending on how long the social distancing orders are in effect, we may try to organize another webinar. Now that we've done it once, I think we know how to do it a little bit better. And then as soon as we can reopen our activities on campus, we will resume holding on-campus events. But the way it looks right now, it probably will not be until the fall, provided that everything gets back to more or less normal in the fall. So thank you very much to all of you, and stay safe and keep your positive attitude.